her manner. Observing, however, that she took no heed of him, but glanced up shuddering at the old walls with which such horrors were connected in her mind, he led her by a private stair into his library, where Emma was seated in a window reading. The young lady, seeing who approached, hastily rose and laid aside her book, and with many kind words, and not without tears, gave her a warm and earnest welcome. But the widow shrunk from her embrace as though she feared her, and sunk down trembling on a chair. "It is the return to this place after so long an absence," said Emma gently. "Pray ring, dear uncle, or stay, Barnaby will run himself and ask for wine." "Not for the world!" she cried. "It would have another taste. I could not touch it. I want but a minute's rest, nothing but that." Miss Haredale stood beside her chair, regarding her with silent pity. She remained for a little time quite still, then rose and turned to Mr. Haredale, who had sat down in his easy-chair, and was contemplating her with fixed attention. The tale connected with the mansion borne in mind, it seemed, as has been already said, the chosen theatre for such a deed as it had known. The room in which this group were now assembled, hard by the very chamber where the act was done, dull, dark, and sombre, heavy with worm-eaten books, deadened and shut in by faded hangings muffling every sound, shadowed mournfully by trees whose rustling boughs gave ever and anon a spectral knocking at the glass, wore, beyond all others in the house, a ghostly, gloomy air. Nor were the group assembled there unfitting tenants of the spot. The widow, with her marked and startling face and downcast eyes, Mr. Haredale, stern and despondent ever, his niece beside him, like yet most unlike the picture of her father, which gazed reproachfully down upon them from the blackened wall, Barnaby, with his vacant look and restless eye, were all in keeping with the place, and actors in the legend. Nay, the very raven, who had hopped upon the table, and with the air of some old necromancer appeared to be profoundly studying a great folio volume that lay open on a desk, was strictly in unison with the rest, and looked like the embodied spirit of evil biding his time of mischief. "I scarcely know," said the widow, breaking silence, "how to begin. You will think my mind disordered. The whole tenor of your quiet and reproachless life since you were last here," returned Mr. Haredale mildly, "shall bear witness for you. Why do you fear to awaken such a suspicion? You do not speak to strangers. You have not to claim our interest or consideration for the first time. Be more yourself. Take heart. Any advice or assistance that I can give you, you know is yours of right, and freely yours." "What if I came, sir," she rejoined, "I who have but one other friend on earth, to reject your aid from this moment, and to say that henceforth I launch myself upon the world, alone and unassisted, to sink or swim as Heaven may decree?" "You would have, if you came to me for such a purpose," said Mr. Haredale calmly, "some reason to assign for conduct so extraordinary, which, if one may entertain the possibility of anything so wild and strange, would have its weight, of course." "That, sir," she answered, "is the misery of my distress. I can give no reason whatever. My own bare word is all that I can offer. It is my duty, my imperative and bounden duty. If I did not discharge it I should be a base and guilty wretch. Having said that, my lips are sealed, and I can say no more." As though she felt relieved at having said so much, and had nerved herself to the remainder of her task, she spoke from this time with a firmer voice and heightened courage. "Heaven is my witness, as my own heart is, and yours, dear young lady, will speak for me, I know, that I have lived since that time we all have bitter reason to remember, in unchanging devotion and gratitude to this family. Heaven is my witness that, go where I may, I shall preserve those feelings unimpaired; and it is my witness, too, that they alone impel me to the course I must take, and from which nothing now shall turn me, as I hope for mercy." "These are strange riddles," said Mr. Haredale. "In this world, sir," she replied, "they may perhaps never be explained. In another the truth will be discovered in its own good time, and may that time," she added in a low voice, "be far distant." "Let me be sure," said Mr. Haredale, "that I understand you, for I am doubtful of my own senses. Do you mean that you are resolved voluntarily to deprive yourself of those means of support you have received from us so long, that you are determined to resign the annuity we settled on you 20 years ago, to leave house and home and goods, and begin life anew, and this, for some secret reason or monstrous fancy which is incapable of explanation, which only now exists and has been dormant all this time? In the name of God, under what delusion are you labouring?" "As I am deeply thankful," she made answer, "for the kindness of those, alive and dead, who have owned this house, and as I would not have its roof fall down and crush me, or its very walls drip blood, my name being spoken in their hearing, I never will again subsist upon their bounty, or let it help me to subsistence. You do not know," she added suddenly, "to what uses it may be applied, into what hands it may pass. I do, and I renounce it." "Surely," said Mr. Haredale, "its uses rest with you." "They did. They rest with me no longer. It may be, it is, devoted to purposes that mock the dead in their graves. It never can prosper with me. It will bring some other heavy judgment on the head of my dear son, whose innocence will suffer for his mother's guilt." "What words are these?" cried Mr. Haredale, regarding her with wonder. "Among what associates have you fallen? Into what guilt have you ever been betrayed?" "I am guilty and yet innocent; wrong, yet right; good in intention, though constrained to shield and aid the bad. Ask me no more questions, sir, but believe that I am rather to be pitied than condemned. I must leave my house to-morrow, for while I stay there it is haunted. My future dwelling, if I am to live in peace, must be a secret. If my poor boy should ever stray this way, do not tempt him to disclose it, or have him watched when he returns. For if we are hunted we must fly again. And now this load is off my mind. I beseech you, and you, dear Miss Haredale, too, to trust me if you can, and think of me kindly as you have been used to do. If I die, and cannot tell my secret even then, for that may come to pass, it will sit the lighter on my breast in that hour for this day's work. And on that day, and every day until it comes, I will pray for and thank you both, and trouble you no more." With that she would have left them, but they detained her, and with many soothing words and kind entreaties besought her to consider what she did, and above all to repose more freely upon them, and say what weighed so sorely on her mind. Finding her deaf to their persuasions, Mr. Haredale suggested, as a last resource, that she should confide in Emma, of whom, as a young person and one of her own sex, she might stand in less dread than of himself. From this proposal, however, she recoiled, with the same indescribable repugnance she had manifested when they met. The utmost that could be wrung from her was a promise that she would receive Mr. Haredale at her own house next evening, and in the meantime reconsider her determination and their dissuasions, though any change on her part, as she told them, was quite hopeless. This condition made at last, they reluctantly suffered her to depart, since she would neither eat nor drink within the house, and she and Barnaby and Grip accordingly went out as they had come, by the private stair and garden gate, seeing and being seen of no one by the way. It was remarkable in the Raven that during the whole interview he had kept his eye on his book with exactly the air of a very sly human rascal, who, under the mask of pretending to read hard, was listening to everything. He still appeared to have the conversation very strongly in his mind, for although when they were alone again he issued orders for the instant preparation of innumerable kettles for purposes of tea, he was thoughtful, and rather seemed to do so from an abstract sense of duty than with any regard to making himself agreeable, or being what is commonly called good company. They were to return by the coach. As there was an interval of full 2 hours before it started, and they needed rest and some refreshment, Barnaby begged hard for a visit to the Maypole. But his mother, who had no wish to be recognized by any of those who had known her long ago, and who feared besides that Mr. Haredale might on second thoughts dispatch some messenger to that place of entertainment in quest of her, proposed to wait in the churchyard instead. As it was easy for Barnaby to buy and carry thither such humble viands as they required, he cheerfully assented, and in the churchyard they sat down to take their frugal dinner. Here again the Raven was in a highly reflective state, walking up and down when he had dined, with an air of elderly complacency which was strongly suggestive of his having his hands under his coat tails, and appearing to read the tombstones with a very critical taste, Sometimes, after a long inspection